What's your secret that could literally ruin your life if it came out? Story 1. I once took a poop in the bathtub, and then realizing what a horrible mistake I'd made, I flung the poo into a hole in the wall. My parents renovated and patched up the hole, so now there's a 15-year-old turd in between the bathroom and kitchen wall of my childhood home. Story 2. My cousin died when we were both 17. There was a reception at his house just after the funeral. I went into his room and stole all the money that was there. Took some other valuables that his parents wouldn't realize were gone. No one knows that I did it. They just assumed he didn't have any money in his room, only loose change. I don't regret it, but I will never admit to it. Story 3. My nut box. Well, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a shoebox, or at least it once was, and whenever I touch myself, I nut into it. I've had it for 2 or 3 years now, so it has a fair amount of nut. It smells atrocious, and I tried to burn it once. When I lit it on fire, it was too damp due to the nut that it simply sizzled and didn't manage to actually light up. Turns out, burning nut smells awful, so I had to spray it with a deodorant body spray just to get the old smell of burnt nut away. It also has some drenched paper stuck to it. That's pretty much it. My greatest shame. Story 4. I run a cake business. I charge people hundreds for wedding cakes. Every last one is made using Pillsbury cake mix I buy for $1 a box at Walmart. I suck at baking. Every time I've tried to make a cake from scratch, it sucked. But baking is like my whole deal. My friends all call me the cake girl. It's like my whole life is a lie. People compliment my cakes all the time, telling me how delicious they are. Telling me it's so much better than box mix cake. Telling me they could never bake a cake so delicious. Well, guess what? For $1, they too can make a cake just as delicious. Just add oil, eggs, and water. In my defense, I love cake decorating. I make all the frostings and fondant from scratch. I just hate baking effing cakes. I base my price mostly on the decoration of the cakes and not the cake itself, if that makes sense. Still, no one knows about this except my husband. Even my best friends think I effing slave over the oven mixing and baking these damn cakes. I've been doing this for years. If anyone knew, my business and reputation would be in the toilet for sure. I keep telling myself I have to learn how to make the damn cakes without the box mixes, but I never do it. I feel like such a sham sometimes. Story 5. Please tell me most of you have masturbated to your female friends. Story 6. While on deployment, I ended a man in a coup de grace. The feelings of taking a man's life away always weigh a heavy burden on me. Every day. No one likes hurting people. He had been hit by some of our mobile artillery. While part of me wanted the bastard to be in pain, it wasn't right. My medic was busy with my wounded, and as the officer on duty, I took out my .45 and put one in his head. I knew my boys wouldn't say anything. Most just watched, accepted it as a fact of war, and kept walking. I remember throwing up afterwards. I came home and everyone acted like I was a hero. I never felt like more of a sham my entire life. Story 7. I hate all my friends. Literally. I don't have anything in common with any of them and don't care. But I'm too scared to be alone and have no one else to go to, so I keep hanging around them. Story 8. Okay, so this is a secret I've kept for nearly 20 years. During the summers when I was growing up, my parents would often leave my brother and I'm male, with our aunt and uncle who lived out in the country. It was great as they had 4 sons of ages close to ours, so we had a lot of fun doing kid stuff. One summer when I was 8, the oldest cousin was maybe 16, we somehow got talking and he asked me if I wanted to sleep in his room that night. He has the nicest room and bed, so I was all for it. Got into bed and he asked if he could touch my private parts. I was 8 and just thought it was okay, so I let him. He rubs it for a bit, then asked me to do the same to him. So I do. This progresses, and eventually, I'm sucking his. I think I knew this was wrong, so I didn't want to carry on. We stop, and I go to sleep quite confused. I wake up, and he hands me some money and tells me never to tell anyone about what happened. Next night, he tries to do the same thing. But now, all I care about is the money, so I do it. This carried on for 2 summers. Eventually, I got old enough to realize it was quite wrong, regardless of the money, and stopped. I've not told anyone this. He's now married with 2 kids. I'm also married, and we see them sometimes at family events. I don't have the balls to even try and talk to him about it. Hell, I'm not even sure what I'd say. Story 9. I have been pretending to be colorblind to everyone I have ever known, including my own parents since I was in the 3rd grade. I am now 28 years old. I even convinced an optometrist of it. Story 10. This one's not life-ruining, but makes me feel like crap every time I think about it. I've told this before. I have a blind brother. When we were young, I used to get so frustrated at all the extra attention he'd receive, and how I had to be more responsible with my sibling than my peers. So, when my brother and I would go play, go to the store, or just generally go anywhere without adults, I would abandon him somewhere unfamiliar to him. Then, I would stand off quietly and watch the anxiety set in as he tried to figure out where he was and what was going on. Also, I was really intelligent as a child and knew that was my ticket to attention. When I would help my brother with his homework, I would teach him all the wrong answers so that I could continue being the smarter sibling. Today, my brother is my best friend. He goes to college and lives by himself. He's become one of the most intelligent men I've met. I'm trying to make it up to him now by being the best big sister ever, but I still feel so guilty at how I found him to be a burden when I was a kid. Story 11. I accidentally offed 7 people. I put a rag in a new water heater exhaust to keep debris out and installed it in a rental. I get a call a week later. There's been an accident. I show up and there's a ton of EMS and police. They ask me where the gas shutoff is, and I go down to shut the gas off and see the end of the rag I forgot sticking out the top of the heater. Rip the rag out, shut the gas off, and head upstairs only to be told all the tenants were dead. I drink all day now and sleep. It's eating me from the inside every single day. But if I say anything, my family is ruined. We have a bunch of rental properties and we'd be shut down. Story 12. Me and my cousin have been doing it for 10 years now. It started when she was 12 and I was 13. We had to babysit the younger kids in our family while the parents went to a party. And when they fell asleep, me and her got to talking about a lot of stuff. I made a move and started kissing her, and she didn't resist. We ended up doing it right on her bed that night. We would end up doing it almost every weekend when we lived with our parents, telling our parents we were going out to hang out with some friends, but actually hooking up. I'm 23 with my own apartment now, and she comes over almost every day to make out/do it. Story 13. When I was around 10 or 11 years old, one of the maid's daughters, who was probably 13 or 14 at the time, had a pretty weird relationship with me. We both mutually liked each other, but the relationship just couldn't happen because my mother strictly forbid me to associate myself with any of the attendants of their family. We did some mild petting, I guess. She touched my private parts and I played with hers. I don't recall any sort of intercourse. Don't even think I was old enough for that. We had a bunch of dogs in the back area, mainly German Shepherd mutts. I personally love dogs and all sorts of animals, so I frequently spend my time in the back lot with the dogs. I watched the dogs mount each other and was interested in what they were doing. I even once saw one of the dogs lick its own private part and it would grow, and I guess the dog nuts out after a certain amount of licking. I went over to feed the dog and she was in the back lot helping her mom hang some clothes. I told her about my pretty effed up idea. I wanted her to get mounted by one of those bigger dogs and she agreed to it. We waited a couple of days when absolutely no one was home except for maybe a couple of other of the attendants' kids for her to do it. She stripped down and walked over to one of the bigger dogs and kneeled down on all fours in front of the dog. The dog started sniffing her backside for a few seconds, and she got up and ran. The dog then chased after her and jumped on her back. She didn't fully fall face first as she went down on all fours again. The dog then went on to do it with her. A few weeks later, she offed herself. I don't know if it was because of my idea or if there were any other causes leading to her doing it. To this day, I still think that my juvenile mind could have caused the death of another person. Story 14. I came very, very close to committing a school shooting. I was picked on a lot in high school. I think it was because I tried so hard to be cool and everyone saw right through it. They were these 4 cowboy jock types that gave it to me the worst. After being publicly humiliated and beaten in front of the girl I liked, as she laughed and cheered, I decided that none of it was worth it anymore. I had no support at home, being an only child and having parents that worked constantly, and cutting and burning myself didn't make me feel better anymore. So, I got my dad's handgun out of the gun safe. He used the same combo for everything, the idiot, and brought it to school with me the next day. I can't adequately describe to you how ready I was to kill these 4. I had absolutely no fear or doubt in my mind. I wanted nothing more than to show everyone what happens when you push someone over the edge like they did. I had the gun tucked in my waistline. I was wearing this baggy pair of cargo shorts that I wore a couple times a week that day. I remember walking towards the cowboys table, so goddamn ready for it to be over, when the gun fell out of my waistline. down my left short leg and made the loudest effing sound as it hit the cafeteria floor. I tried my best to grab the gun real quick, but people saw what it was and screamed, and one of the instructors tackled me to the ground. They eventually concluded that I had brought the gun to school to impress people with badassery, and had no intention of using it. I was expelled and sent to live in a youth ranch in Idaho until I was 18. I did have the intention of using it though. I was going to end all of them. I'm 24 now and I still think about it all the time. I've not recovered from high school. I'm still terrified of people in general and avoid having relationships because of what I fear I'm capable of. I'm not looking for pity. I know that what I did was wrong. It just feels good to tell the story.